everybody. Pastor Mark Driscoll here. Just watched the presidential debate in my home study, and don't really talk a lot about politics, but at the end of the day, I think this is a historic moment in the history of the United States of America, and it signals for us a full-blown crisis. And we just witnessed the debate. If you watched it, I want to talk in a moment about communication, preparation. This was a devastating night for particularly the Democratic Party and their candidate, who had to be helped off the stage by his own wife so that he would not fall down. And at this point, I'm pro-America. I love my country. I'm not always, like many Americans and Christians, I'm not always a big fan of my government, but I do love my country. And like many Christians, I'm first a Christian. Second, I'm a conservative. And third, I'm a Republican. And most of the Republican candidates are further to the left than I am. And so I don't always usually don't get, like most evangelical Bible-believing Christians, candidates that directly align with our values. So we do the best we can to vote for those that hold our policies that we prioritize most dear. But what we're dealing with now is just simple functional cognitive ability and the capacity to actually do what is probably the hardest job in the world. And I just want to talk about tonight the debacle that we saw from the perspective of being a communicator. A few things are obvious. We have 330-ish million people in our country, and these are our options, which is astounding. I'm 53 years of age, and I'm getting ready to meet my third and fourth grandchild, 2 grandchildren in the world, 2 grandchildren in the womb. And if I was running for office, I would be a very young man. In fact, if my father was running for office, he would be comparatively a young man. We're now seeing a generation, and I think this is an indictment on an entire generation that's just holding a death grip on power. They're holding control of churches, denominations within the Christian sphere, political roles, jobs at work, just cannot succeed in succession, cannot release and relinquish power. And the result is we've just got angry old men, and we can't tell the difference between a closed circuit recording of the VFW and a bunch of old men arguing and fighting about their golf game and a presidential debate, because it's essentially the same conversations that are being had. Now, that being said, what we saw as well tonight was shocking. This is, I believe, the earliest presidential debate in history. We haven't even had the conventions for the respective parties as of yet. In addition, the entire format should have been, I want to talk about this as a communicator. I have a bachelor's degree from the Edward R. Murrow School of Communication. It was one of the top 5 programs in the country when I graduated. And I've been communicating for more than 3 decades. I preach almost every weekend. I teach. I've done debates. I've been on with Deepak Chopra, debating on ABC Nightline. I've been on The View with Whoopi Goldberg. I went toe-to-toe with Piers Morgan. And I'll just tell you this. From a communicator's and cognitive standpoint tonight, this was a layup. A layup. This was less difficult than the average pastor has to deal with every weekend in delivering a sermon. Why? Well, first and foremost, there were commercials in the CNN debate. That is unprecedented in American history. And if you're an old guy who's in cognitive decline and your energy levels are suspect, this is a great benefit to you, because now you don't need to be present for an entire hour and a half. Instead, you get breaks along the way. This is shocking. Even the average pastor has a much harder job than what we saw tonight. They've got to speak, and they've got to speak for 30, 40, 50, 60, if you're me, 70 minutes, and do it over and over and over, week after week. This ability to have breaks in the communication means you get to gather your thoughts, get a drink of water, collect, sort of anticipate what is coming next. That makes it very easy. in a form, it's cheating. It really makes it easy from a communication standpoint. In addition, there was no audience. So now you're not having to deal with the dynamics that the average preacher actually has to deal with. Somebody's phone rings, somebody's baby's crying, somebody's falling asleep, somebody's heckling you. There's nobody there. Well, if there's nobody there, that actually doesn't help the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, because he plays off of the audience. He's an interactive communicator and he's an entertainer. For Joe Biden, this is tremendously helpful because when you're an old man and you have cognitive decline and health issues, a room full of people and distractions, and their reactions to you can throw you off and they can confuse you mentally. So all of this was custom built to set up our current president, and the Bible says to pray for your political leaders. Pray for him. He obviously needs prayer. And it was a complete and total disaster and failure. And what we're seeing as well is we're seeing a country that truly is without leadership. And before you jump on and accuse me of being MAGA, look, I at the end of the day love the United States of America, and I want religious freedom so that the churches can preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want freedom for families to raise their children, and I want freedom for faith, and that takes strong leadership. You've got war in Ukraine. You've got war in Israel. You've got alliances that are being formed with, let's say, Russia and Putin and North Korea most recently, in addition to Russia and China. I mean, there are some horrifically evil world leaders that have, as of tonight, zero respect and zero fear for the United States of America. And the result is that we are a nation that is absolutely lacking leadership. And what we saw tonight was men largely arguing about which one of them is better and worse. And at the end of the day, what's going to overshadow all of the policies and even the well-being of citizens in our dear, wonderful country is just the inability of our senior leader presently to do his job today, let alone in 4 years. 4 years. You could have taken any pastor in the United States of America who's been in the pulpit for more than 5 years and has a congregation of more than 200 people and given them 15 minutes notice, and they probably could have won that debate tonight. That's how outlandish it was. And all the reports are that our president took a full week at Camp David, sequestered. So now there's no people around him. You know what they're doing? They're making sure he eats well, he's hydrated, he's sleeping well, they're prepping him for the debate. Everything is for him to be able to just focus and communicate for 90 minutes. That's it. That's it. If you're a communicator, this is like eating a sandwich or taking a nap. This is what you do. In addition, there are commercials, so you don't even need to fill the whole 90 minutes. Plus, half the time goes to your opponent. So now, what are you looking at? 30 minutes of content that you need to deliver, and all you do for an entire week is prepare for that 30 minutes. You have a team of handlers. You have a team of speech preparers. You have doctors and nutritionists, and everyone is there. And what they are doing, they're making sure that the best version of you shows up mentally, physically, emotionally present. And you can't put two sentences together. You ramble. You lose your train of thought. In addition, your voice sounds weak because your body is weak. And as a communicator, I'll tell you, every preacher deals with this. You have certain cough drops, certain throat sprays or lozenges, certain routines that we go through so that our voice is strong and we communicate clearly and effectively, that we communicate with authority and with confidence. Can't even communicate. Can't even articulate. And so then I'm sure that the report will come out, well, he had a cold. That is inexcusable. I've been preaching for more than 30 years. I've probably been in the pulpit and teaching classes and other modes of communication, probably 20-some thousand hours. And what I will tell you is this. A lot of those hours were with allergies and sinus infections and a cold. Every solo pastor of a small to medium-sized church that doesn't have an associate pastor on backup will tell you they preach with a cold all the time, and they do their job. If you're at the point that you can't think and communicate for 30 minutes after a week of preparation and isolation, officially, you're done.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean to act like a man?
There are many places in this world that are here to help men. What's worse, most churches nowadays are run by guys you could knock over with a stiff breeze.
Is it okay for a woman to make more than a man?
Absolutely, I think.
Okay, are you a man?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, then describe yourself.
I'm the breadwinner, and he is more of like the stay-at-home type.
I know he takes on a lot of more quote-unquote feminine roles.
Same thing with women. I'm pretty sure there could be women that could be men.
It's more of like patriarchy that's like the thing.
To act like a man, I don't think there's like generally any way that anyone's supposed to act anymore.
How in the world are we supposed to know what it means to act like a man? Been waiting more than 30 years to write my first ever men's book and help you learn how to act like a man. You're done. This is no longer about Trump versus Biden or Republican versus Democrat. This is elder abuse if you vote for the Democratic nominee. That's where we find ourselves. It is elder abuse. This is taking a man who should be home with his kids and grandkids and should be living out the remaining years of his life, enjoying the people that love him and he loves. And as a pastor, that's what I would want for him. If this was my grandpa, I would just tell him the obvious fact. Grandpa, I love you. I appreciate you. It's time to go home. It's time to retire. The country needs a leader, and you just don't have it. Maybe one day you were a strong man, and you were a confident man, and you were a man with courage and clarity and conviction. That man is gone. And my wife, I've told this to Grace, she's my dear wife. I said, honey, when the day comes that I'm not making sense, I've lost my clarity, I'm stumbling over my words, I'm starting to say things that don't make sense. Do me a favor, sweetheart, bring me home. This is literally the conversation we've had over and over and over. Now, Lord willing, I'm decades away from that day, but I've literally just told her, I said, honey, I love you. You're the person I trust the most, and I love and trust my children as well. I said, when that day comes, I said, just bring Dad home, sit him in a chair, and give me a ham sandwich and the television remote, and bring the kids and grandkids over and tell me I don't have to go to work anymore. And I'm good with that. If you love someone, you don't let them end this way. If you love someone, you don't allow the weakest, worst version of them to be the final memory of them. If you love someone, you don't give them the hardest job in the world knowing that they couldn't do it for 30 minutes today after a week of preparation, and certainly won't be stronger and clearer in 4 years under the duress, stress, and pressure of the job. And because we live in an age of such media, it is incumbent upon those who are leaders to have some oratory skill and capacity. What I saw tonight was shocking. You couldn't graduate from a preaching 101 class at a mediocre Bible college by delivering what we saw tonight. Pray for our country, for an older generation of leadership. When are you going to give up power? I mean, really, truly. This is like Grandpa driving the family around until he rolls the car over and everyone dies, just because no one has the sense to tell Grandpa that he probably shouldn't be behind the wheel anymore. In addition, for those of you who are older leaders, you got to ask the question, like, how am I doing? Where is my succession? When is it time to go home? And why is it that I just need to be in control until the very end of my life? And I'll just tell you this. I don't make a lot of political commentary. And at the end of the day, I'm more of a Bible teacher, and my hope is in the gospel of Jesus Christ. But mark my words on this. This was a historic day, a historic moment. This is a lightning rod occurrence in the history of the United States of America. And our border is wide open. War is everywhere. And what every strong man just learned is that we're led by a grandpa who should have retired quite a bit ago. What does this mean for the country? I have no idea. Can they even run this man through the nomination into the election? I do not see how. Is the country going to rally behind Donald Trump? I would doubt it. Is this going to unify the country? No, this is going to terrify the country. Where are we headed? Chaos, uncertainty, fear, and anxiety. So let me close with this as I verbal process. And let me say this too. The closing few-minute commentary by both sides was unimpressive, but the fact that Joe Biden could not remember his close is shocking as a communicator. I will tell you, like when I went on with Piers Morgan, when I went on to The View with Barbara Walters and Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the coven, I had my talking points in my mind, and especially when I did my debate on ABC Nightline with Deepak Chopra, I thought through where I wanted to go in my close because I assumed that they would give us closing comments. This was when I was a young man a long time ago. Your close is your final statement. Every preacher knows you better land the plane at the end of the talk. And so what is happening behind the scenes for the previous week is this. Over and over and over and over, he was practicing his close. He was memorizing his close. A team of speechwriters and communicators and PR representatives were helping him dial in his close. And he got up, and he didn't know his close. I'll just tell you, this is shocking. This is like a pastor who's preached the gospel his whole life gets up and then forgets to talk about Jesus and loses his way and stumbles over his words and slurs his speech. You're like, oh my goodness, you should be able to do this at 3 o'clock in the morning while you're asleep with no problems, because this should come from literally the heart, soul, and center of who you are. That's what a close is. That's where a close comes from. So let me say this. If we can find any hope in the debacle we saw tonight, there is a God. His name is Jesus Christ. He is not a candidate. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He has walked on the earth. He has lived without sin. He has died for our sin. He has risen from death, and he has returned to his heavenly throne, where right now he is ruling and reigning. Our God does not get old. Our God does not sin. Our God does not fail. Our God does not make mistakes. Our God does not age. Our God does not err. Our God does not decline. Our God was and is and will always be perfect in all that he says and does and is. If you are believing that there is any other Savior other than Jesus Christ, I think tonight you got a wake-up call. If you were thinking that we could straighten out our problems with government, you just learned tonight that your hope is misplaced. Over our government is our God. I pray for our government, but I pray to our God. And at the end of the day, our hope has to be in this. Jesus Christ is over human history. Jesus Christ is over kings and kingdoms and nations and politicians. Jesus Christ hears and answers the prayers of his people. Jesus Christ is coming again. Jesus Christ will lift the curse. Jesus Christ will judge the living and the dead. Jesus Christ will bring all elections to an end. Jesus Christ is going to heal all who are sick, and he will ultimately comfort all those who are brokenhearted if they believe in him and belong to him. I don't know who our president will be, but what I feel inclined is to tell you that more important than your president is your God, and more important than your candidate is your Savior. And the only way that anyone will be able to navigate the absolute clown show meets Purge episode meets Scooby-Doo scary day that awaits us is by having the ability to look up and to find a God over it, and for him to comfort us and empower us, to lead us and guide us, to lift our anxiety and to remove our fears so that we can continue to live our lives. What we just learned is this: the most powerful nation, I believe the most wonderful nation in the history of the world, is in crisis. And unless people return to Jesus Christ, and unless we follow his leadership and live under his lordship, this election is not our solution. Jesus Christ was, Jesus Christ is, and Jesus Christ will always be our hope.